continue now with Luke 12, verses 35 through 40. We are told, I tell you the truth. Imagine that when the Christ says, I tell you the truth. He will dress himself to serve, will have them recline at the table, and will come and wait on them. Imagine what this means. That the divinity, the uncreated one, holiness, will serve them, will have them come to his table and commune with him to the extent that they will be served by that which is inconceivable. All this is an imagery, turning the tables on what the logical mind would expect. In this context, why in the world would the groom be serving the guests or those who are there to help him? But it is made clear that in living rightly for God, in remembrance of God, in expectation of God, not only does he come into our home, but we dine with him. He serves us the bounty of his grace and unconditional love. This is an extraordinary expression and suggestion of what is possible when we make certain efforts. The idea that there is salvation without our participation is once and for all clearly dismissed in this direct teaching from the words of Christ. If we do this, he will do that. Or in the letter of James, return to him and he will return to you. It is in our very nature to play a role in reconnecting with God. So the distorted theology that we've all heard, once saved, always saved, or say this prayer and you're saved, is utter nonsense. Merely the result of centuries of disconnection and degeneration from the source. Here at the source, it is made abundantly clear that if we do this particular kind of interaction, inner effort with the tools that we have that are entirely possible to manage, then this will result. The groom will become the one who serves. God will be in our life, will give to us because we have been present to open the door. We have waited in patient expectation, which includes, of course, faith, inner strength, and all those qualities that, despite circumstances, are focused on the one thing necessary, on the most important aspect of our existence. Having told us what happens if we are present in conscious expectations, having told us what will happen when we are present in conscious expectation of the arrival of God in our life, of the return of the bridegroom, when we are ready to open the door immediately upon the knocking of spirit, we are given this extraordinary vision of sharing, of receiving from the holy that we have been faithful to. Christ goes on to say, it will be good for those servants whose master finds them ready, even if he comes in the second or third watch of the night, late into the dark night. Another poetic metaphor, even when it seems too late for God to come, when we feel abandoned, when all hope is lost, at the darkest hour of life, it will be good for us if He finds us waiting for Him. May this be consolation to those who are in that dark night of the soul and have lost hope and lost track and feel forgotten. The words of the Christ, it will be good for you if you keep watching, keep waiting, keep your lamps burning. So much is packed into these words that can change our lives, that can fill us with hope and get us through those difficult times. And then he tells us, but understand this, if the owner of the house had known at what hour of the night the thief was coming, he would not have left his house to be broken into. This is a switch of a metaphor. Now we're speaking of watching that also frees us from the thief. There's the watching for the return of the master. There's the watching for the invasion of the thief. Because in that keeping of the lamps burning, not only are we present to the reality of God, but we are also present to the danger of what is not God coming into our house, coming into our heart, into our mind. This again is that watch of the heart, that discernment of thoughts, that keeping at bay that which can come in and destroy us. So often people are destroyed not by the outside, but what comes into them through suggestion, through obsession, through random thoughts that are left unguarded and capture us. You also must be ready. So for all time, he tells every human being, you also must be ready. Ready like the servant waiting for the bridegroom in that most important moment, or like the master of the house protecting his home. Then we find in the next verse Peter saying, Lord, are you telling this parable to us or to everyone? Which initiates then an interpretation by Jesus of this parable. He says, who then is the faithful and wise manager whom the master puts in charge of his servants? So now we go to another level of this teaching, focusing on another aspect of that waiting on God. Because the burning lamps also means managing the house while God is away. And of course the house is our inner being, is who we are, is that temple where God should be in the Holy of Holies. Give them their proper food allowance at the proper time. It will be good for that servant whom the master finds doing so when he returns. And then Jesus says, I tell you the truth, he will put him in charge of all his possessions. That is to say, if in our time of waiting, in our time when we are not electrified by divine inspiration, by the entry of divine grace, if we maintain our faith and keep our virtues and our desire to please God fully active, take care of the house, as is said in this metaphor, take care of the servants of the house, we will be put in charge of all his possessions. What does this metaphor suggest? All things will be ours, that is to say, this glorious freedom of the children of God, this inheritance of being children of God, this sense of connectedness and integration with all of creation, ours to have, to live from, to use in the consciousness of God, in the joy of being. This is the result of receiving all his possessions in a new quality of consciousness, in a new capacity to understand why we are here and whose we are and what to do with this short life that we have been given. Being put in charge of all his possessions is receiving ultimate enlightenment.